levels of government, including Governor Laura Kelly. First, I want to once again express my deepest condolences for those directly impacted by this tragedy and to our entire community, as Wichitans, as Kansans, and as Americans. We grieve this loss together, and we grieve deeply. But in this dark time, the light can be found in people raising their hand, showing up, and offering help. And I want to say thank you to many of the individuals in our community who donated water, donated food, and trying to make it comfortable for those who are trying to report about this tragedy from our community, as well as those who have friends and families affected. I am really grateful to the kindness of Wichita. We've had donations, again, from all across the city, so again, thank you. We also have grief assistance that Sedgwick County is providing, and there will be further information regarding that in the coming hours. That is who Wichita is. For those that don't know Wichita, Kansas is the air capital. It's a community built on kindness, built on being together and working together. And we have an opportunity to use our words for comfort. We can use our actions towards helping and uplifting one another. And here in our community, we unite. And you saw that in our community-wide prayer at noon today. You saw faiths from all across the spectrum. You saw people of all races, of all backgrounds, because Wichita is very diverse, and I'm proud to come from this community. This is my community. I've grown up here, and I'm proud to be a Wichitan. And I'm proud that this community is coming together in a time like this, in a tragic event that should unite us all to remember that life is precious. So at this time, I would like to invite Kansas Governor Laura Kelly to provide remarks.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, everybody. I really do appreciate all of your being here. It is very important that the people who have been affected by this tragedy know that they've got folks on the ground working on their behalf. I have been incredibly impressed with the response of the mayor's office, our first responders here, the Red Cross, and a number of other nonprofit groups that have really gathered together to be as responsive as is humanly possible to meet the needs of those who've been impacted by this incredible tragedy. So I'd also like to reassure people that we are in constant communication with our federal partners. Both the mayor and I have been on the phone constantly since last night with representatives from the National Transportation Safety Board, from the governors of Virginia and Maryland, and all sorts of other folks who are involved with this tragedy. And I can assure you that they are working as hard and as fast as they possibly can. I mean, they had first responders from multiple jurisdictions respond last night, all through the night, first for the rescue and then for the recovery operations. So what can be done is being done. I know that the Red Cross has set up a center in Bethesda, Maryland, I believe at the Hyatt Regency, for folks who are on that end of this tragedy, and that we have the Red Cross set up here at Eisenhower Terminal. So there are resources available for people. The other thing we would like is American Airlines is responsible for notifying the families of the folks who perished in this plane crash. They would like it very much if you think you might know somebody, if you think a friend of yours, a family member, or someone else was on that plane, please contact American Airlines, and let me give you their number. It is 1-800-777-7266. 800-679-8215. Let me repeat that. 800-679-8215. If you have any suspicion that you knew somebody on that plane, please call that number. And I also like to thank the press for being here in such force. You know, you are the way we are able to communicate with people and to reassure them that people have their backs and are on the watch, and that there are resources available for them. So thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you again, Governor Kelly. Really appreciate, again, that constant communication we've received from the governor's office, as well as the offices of our federal partners, including Senator Moran, Senator Marshall, Congressman Estes, and I also had a phone call from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. So I'm, again, very appreciative that people are reaching out. My colleagues as mayors all across the United States have been in constant contact with me. Friends that just know or have flown to Wichita, have visited this community, have been sending well wishes and prayers to all of us, and I'm very grateful that people are reaching out to all of us. But I ask that each of those prayers really go to the individuals who were on that flight, to the families who were on that flight, to the first responders in Washington, D.C. who are helping with the recovery efforts, and truly prayers for our entire greater Wichita and Kansas community. I would like to invite our representative for Senator Roger Marshall to please say a few words.
Good afternoon. I'm Kenya Cox, District Director for U.S. Senator Marshall. Senator Marshall is continuing to work with our federal delegation to provide real-time information to both our state and local leadership as it becomes available. Senator Marshall issued the following statement this afternoon. As we continue to process this horrible tragedy, my office stands ready to assist the families, friends, and colleagues of those who lost loved ones. My staff and I remain in contact with Mayor Wu, with airport leadership, the NTSB staff, and as we learn more about the accident, we will continue to provide those details. My prayers continue to be with the families and the entire Wichita, Kansas community as we recover from this tragedy. Thank you.
As I mentioned, our Wichita community is very unique. We have a lot of wonderful partners that come together in a time like this. Whether you see, again, the water, the coffee, this community is a helpful community. And one of those helpful neighbors is the Wichita Community Foundation. I would like to invite Shelley Pritchard from the Wichita Community Foundation to discuss a new resource they have set up for families impacted by this tragedy.
Good afternoon. As Mayor Wu said, I'm Shelley Pritchard at the Wichita Foundation, and this is Courtney Bankston, our Chief Strategy Officer. We don't normally dress like this. We literally just got off a plane at our fabulous airport and ran over here so we could help share this news. So we have been working with a very wide variety of community partners, and we've established a fund called ICT-together.org. There's links on our website. There'll be a lot of links. Early last night, we started having people reach out to us to find out how they could help, how they could contribute, and what it would look like. So this will be used for crisis remediation, help with mental health. We don't know yet what that will be, but we invite the community, if you are feeling this pain the way many of us are, that if this is a way that you'd like to be a part of that, we'd invite you to join that. And Courtney will tell you about some of the other folks we're working with in DC.
Thanks, Shelley. Good afternoon. We are very pleased to be in conversation with a lot of local partners, as well as people that were affected in the tragedy in Washington, D.C. So while we're still working out a lot of details, we are working with the Greater Washington Community Foundation, as well as 2 or 3 community foundations in the Virginia area. We also are in conversations with others who may have been impacted by this, whether they lived in Wichita or in the DC area, and we'll continue to work on that collaboration over the next couple of days.
So as you hear of things, people can certainly reach out to our website, send us messages or whatever, but we'll work with people. We're not the mental health experts, but we are always working with the people who are. So we'll find those experts in the community and make sure that they receive that funding to help the families and those in the community who are most impacted. Thanks.
Again, thank you, Shelley, and the Wichita Community Foundation for helping set up something right away. We have received calls from major employers here in our community that want to be helpful, and they've reached out, and again, I'm very grateful that the Community Foundation is providing that opportunity. Kansas's motto is ad astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulties. Just yesterday was Kansas Day. I ask that each and every one of us remembers the individuals who have been impacted, their families, and use our words to bring comfort to one another. Again, use actions to help one another and uplift. So I ask that we continue to do that as a community of Wichita, of Kansas, and of Americans. So while we may not have all the answers right now, and we will not provide information that is not confirmed, as this is not helpful to families, we feel very much connected to Washington, D.C., and feel this tragedy has impacted not just our community, but their community and multiple others around the country and world. When you come to Wichita, you're a Wichitan, and that includes those figure skaters who were here in our community last week. We embrace everyone who sets foot on the city limits of Wichita, and we're grateful that each and every one of you wants to be part of the solution. So at this time, we will take some questions.
First question is, how many people are from Wichita or Kansas that were on that flight?
As of right now, I don't have that information. I have been in constant contact with American Airlines, and they do tell us that they do not provide that manifest. And so what we do know is that last night, several council members, including the vice mayor and I, along with the city manager and airport director, were at the airport, and one family from this city was there. So I will not confirm the individual's name, but I can tell you one family did show up to the airport, but no additional families have shown up at the airport.
Am I understanding that correctly then, Mayor, that American Airlines doesn't plan to make public the list of people who were on that flight?
I have been asking for the list of names, as I know that our federal partners or state partners have all been asking for that, and we are patiently waiting. I believe it's respectful that families get contacted first. Next of kin should be contacted by authorities, and I want that process to follow through that way.
Sure, but after that, we might see, after everybody's been contacted, we might see a list of names.
I will be pushing for that, and Governor Kelly.
Actually, John, in my conversation with the National Transportation Safety Board this afternoon, I asked them exactly that question, and they're waiting for all the families to be notified, and there are some folks who are on that plane who are from overseas, and so that's partially the reason for the delay, is really needing to get in touch with those families over there. But they expected that we'd likely have the manifest sometime tomorrow afternoon.
Governor, I know you said when you first got up here you were in contact with federal partners, and it is early, but did they tell you where they're at and looking at in the investigation how this may have happened, or just what comes next as they try to determine that?
Well, obviously, you know, they were in the rescue portion, then they go into the recovery, and then they'll go into the analysis. But you can trust, that we're pushing them for answers. These families need answers to what happened here. And so as fast as we can get them to give us those answers, we'll get them out and we'll get them to the people.
Governor, there's a lot that we don't know at the moment, but I'm curious, do you believe it's appropriate for President Trump to speculate that diversity initiatives within the FAA could have in some way contributed to this tragedy?
I think all of our attention ought to be focused right now on the families and the victims, and leave the system issues and the causes to the folks who are trained very well to do this, and then come up with those answers and figure out exactly what went wrong.
Is there any investigation happening here in Wichita? I know the bulk of the investigation's there. Is there any NTSB, FAA here in Wichita to look at maintenance at the airport or anything like that?
Let me give that to somebody who might know.
No, that's your short answer. And so there's, I think we were asked that this morning. We didn't receive any reports of any abnormalities in the operation with that aircraft boarding or departing from Wichita. And so the investigation will occur at the site of the incident, which is handled by all the entities there.
Thank you.
People may be understandably a little bit hesitant to get on a plane at the moment. Does anybody have words of assurance for people who are thinking about that, getting flying commercially?
Well, I think there's probably no safer mode of transportation. This is the first commercial crash since, 2009. Extraordinarily rare. And when all is said and done, this one was probably an avoidable accident. So I think people should, carry on with their plans. It's safe.
Governor, you said this one was, you said when all was said and done, this one was an avoidable accident. Is that a supposition on your part, or have you learned something that would lead you to that conclusion?
I haven't learned anything, or I haven't heard anything, but I have been reading a whole lot, and I've particularly been reading about the way that commercial jets are outfitted and the technology on them and what they allow them to do. And so, the fact that this occurred, was probably not a result of planes not being safe to fly on. Do I have any hard? No, that's for the folks back in D.C. To come up with. But I just can't imagine this. This plane was as well designed as they can be, with the right technology, the right equipment, and experienced pilots.
Mrs. Mayor, could you go back to the counseling services being offered, whether it's both private organizations you said or the city might be doing it? Could you just expand on what those groups are and how can these local families contact them if they need counseling and other mental support?
First and foremost, the airport director and his care team have been activated since last night, and they continue to be there at this current moment. And so I would advise, if anyone needs any assistance, family members, friends, staff members who may need that space, that it is available to them as well. But I do know that Sedgwick County is with our ComCare. They handle our crisis center. So I will have Chairman Ryan Beatty.
Thank you, Mayor, and appreciate that question. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, Julie Stimson of the Sedgwick County Emergency Management Center, she collaborated several organizations here in the community at the Emergency Operations Center, just across the street. Organizations that were in the room were ComCare, that's our certified behavioral health clinic. The United Way was present, American Red Cross was present. The conversation was about the plan moving forward in regard to services for the community. What mental health services need to be made available? Do we need to create a hotline for people throughout the community that have questions about this event and would like to talk through this event? Obviously, we have the 988 hotline that's available and staffed 24 hours a day via ComCare. We have significant resources here throughout Sedgwick County for mental health supports. But we want to make sure that specifically for this event, that we have everything available for the community. So those conversations are happening right now. That meeting is happening right now, and we expect to announce something within the next few hours of what could be for the steps forward. So thank you for that question.
Another question for Mr. Romo. This flight from Wichita to Washington, how often, how many times a day does it happen? Does it involve, how many times a day would the same plane go to and from Wichita and Washington? And also, is that flight now back going, that 518 flight?
So the first part of your question was frequency of service. It's daily service, so it's one flight a day that we have. And it was departing about 5:30 and getting in about 9 p.m. Local time in DC. That is our only scheduled flight departure for that route. The flight for this evening was canceled, and as far as we have seen so far, the flight for tomorrow is scheduled. So we should see service return, but ideally everybody needs to check with American Airlines if that's who you're flying with.
I'm sure you all have seen a lot of moments over the past few hours here. Is there anything at a gut level that you've seen that you're proud of, that you have been taken back by, that you believe people who are watching this across the world need to know about what's happened?
Our community had a community-wide prayer at noon, and what you saw should make all Americans proud. All faiths came together to offer prayers, thoughts, and truly comforting words for families who right now are still in a moment of distress and uncertainty. So it made me proud that our community came together, that faith leaders from all across the city came to City Hall, provided prayers, and then together we went outside in front of the Law Enforcement Memorial and did a closing prayer together as a community. That's what makes me proud, because in Wichita, we are united.
Mayor,
do you know how many, I was going to just answer this question. I think what
makes me proudest is the fact that we watched all levels of government immediately come together. Late last night with the federal government, the state government, the local units of government, that we all came together. We all put aside any differences we might have in other issues and just focused on this issue. So that's what I'm most proud of. I think that's when government works best.
Earlier, the governor mentioned the hotline for people to call in if they think that they know someone who may have been on the flight. Just wanted to clarify, is that to allow American Airlines to actually make that contact? Like they know who was on the plane, they just need to contact the family members, make sure that they reach those folks?
Yeah, because they may not, I can't remember all what you put on when you buy a ticket, but there may not have been contact information, and so that's what they're hoping to get by this. And now that you mention, why don't I read it one more time so everybody has an opportunity. Calling American Airlines if you think you know a family member or a friend, a neighbor, anyone. The number to call is 800-679-8215.
Governor, do you know how many families American Airlines has notified so far of, recovering family members with their deceased loved ones?
I think we don't know the exact number at this point. We know that there are 4 people from overseas that had not been notified. We don't know how many actually have.
Where are they from overseas?
I don't know.
Governor,
I did have a question for the mayor. It seems like Wichita has become a place where you get these kind of national and regionally national sports competitions. You have the figure skating U.S. championships. You've regularly had NCAA Final Four tournament games. Talk about the importance of these events to the city and perhaps why an accident or tragedy like this hurts a little because you've been, doing all of these events.
Our community was so proud to host the U.S. Figure Skating Championships just last week. And as a matter of fact, we have Visit Wichita's director here, and I will have Susie say a few words, but we were very proud to have been chosen to host the championships. And I believe as a community, we were so proud to see these high-level athletes, their families, their friends, fans, coming to our community and sharing their skills and talents so that the whole world could see. And to end it with this type of tragedy just truly breaks my heart. I said this morning, my heart is truly heavy because this community had a celebration just last week. And this is what is going to be part of that story now. And our community celebrated 1 year of this direct flight from Wichita to Washington, D.C. on January 8th, 2024, which was the day that myself and 2 other council members were inaugurated into this city council, but it was also the inauguration flight for that nonstop American Airlines flight. So it makes me truly sad that this tragedy has happened. And again, it requires a lot of individuals coming together for any community to host a national championship. And so I am truly saddened for the entire figure skating community, and our hearts are with them too.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just echo a little bit of what the mayor said. We are so fortunate here in Wichita to have world-class facility like Interest Bank Arena. So we are able to attract those national events that I think are so important for our community. And to, as you mentioned, Mayor, come off of the high of an incredible week. First time this event has been in Kansas. It was just a week ago today at this time that we are kicking off the first session and crowning the champion that evening, or the next day. So it's been a tough 12 hours, as we've learned. Been in conversation with U.S. Figure Skating, and they are, haven't released all of the impacted families at this time back to us, but we know it's hit that community very, very deeply. They are a tight-knit group. We've gotten to work with them over the past year, and they're like family for us. And I know a lot of people in the community have worked with the kids, have been with the kids for the last week, and so it's impacted a lot of us. So our condolences go out to all of the Wichitans who've been impacted this. As the mayor said, we're a tight-knit family and a community, and I think we're all realizing that we're going to know somebody that knows somebody that was impacted. And again, our hearts go out to the Figure Skating Company, or Figure Skating Association as well. Thank you, Mayor.
I do have one more question, Governor Mayor. What questions would you have for the Defense Department based on the crash yesterday? Are there questions that you have for the Defense Department that need answered?
I will just say that first and foremost, I know that there are multiple media partners here. For the families in particular, I want to make sure that it's confirmed information and factual information that gets shared. And so my ask of the Department of Defense and the entire investigative team is that it is a thorough investigation so that answers can be provided to the family members who have been impacted. So I know that our federal partners have told us that they're continuing this work. They have been in touch with multiple levels of government, local, state, federal level. And so we will continue to ask for that thorough investigation.
What was your conversation with Transportation Secretary Duffy? Did he share anything that we should know?
So unfortunately, he called and left a message because we were in the middle of our community prayer. I did call back, and unfortunately, he did not respond, but I will be calling him back again.
Of all faiths coming together to mourn and to pray, and as diversity really being a strength of Wichita, do you believe it's appropriate to speculate about whether diversity initiatives in the FAA had anything to do with this tragedy at this point?
I believe that this is less than 24 hours since a tragic event happened in Washington, D.C., involving members of Wichita, Kansas, America, and the world. And I think that right now what we need most is to comfort the families who right now still don't know all the answers. And I think that that should be priority number one. So I ask all of us to continue praying for the families affected, for the first responders who are still there gathering information, helping with the recovery efforts, and truly pray for the entire greater Wichita community, Kansas, and America.
I don't know who this question should go to, but did this at all for anybody recall the really tragic events of 1970 when you have the Wichita State University football players, half the team was on a plane that crashed in the Rockies? That was the thing that kind of popped into my head when I saw the news on this. Did that pop into anybody else's head or remind anybody of that?
I'm a Wichita State University alum, along with Councilmember Glasscock and several others here present. And as a Wichita State alum, I remember walking by the memorial, and as a reporter, a former journalist, I remember covering that story. So not only is the tragedy of the football team coming to mind, but also another tragedy that happened near our airport also in 2014. So our community has gone through these tragedies, but our community shows that we can come together and help those families that are affected and move forward together. And I think in this instance, that is what we're asking for. Can we come together and really help the families who are mourning the loss of their loved ones? And again, because we don't have those names, I am going to reiterate what the governor said, because American Airlines really wants to connect with those next of kin. So please utilize that 1-800 number to reach out to American Airlines if you suspect that a family, a friend, or a neighbor may have been on that flight.
The statements you're making about unity and the need to provide comfort to the families, that sounds like, no offense, a pitch to social media, which can, when things like this happen, go nuts with people saying things and not knowing anything, people throwing out conspiracy theories, all of that. So are you hoping that you're going to have a calming effect on, for example, social media, and that people aren't out there speculating?
I believe in the power of words and the power of actions, which is why I keep saying that it's important to provide factual and confirmed information so that, again, family members really know what is confirmed and true. So I ask people to utilize your words and your actions towards helping these families really understand what is happening, only confirmed information. And then at the end of the day, what I'm asking for is that we all have a choice. We have a choice to use our words and our actions for good, and we can do that. It's a choice. And I believe that in Wichita, many in this community are choosing to focus on the good, focus on helping, whether it's the Wichita Community Foundation propping up a website so you can help, or providing what you can to those who are reporting on this or being affected by this. So again, only factual and confirmed information, and then a full investigation.
We have time for one more question.
Mayor, is there going to be any specific help for those Wichita families to bring their loved ones who were lost back home, aside of like the Wichita Foundation that you were mentioning?
In terms of the bodies being returned to the origin of wherever these individuals come from, I do believe that American Airlines will be in touch with these individuals. Is that correct, Jesse? with the families. Can you just address how, again, families can get in contact and how they can get help?
If there are families locally that have been impacted, we do have an incident family support team that's been active in the terminal. They can come in, we can help assist in coordinated communication. There's a lot of protocols in place when an incident like this occurs, and because it occurred in Washington, D.C., those entities are responding there with them. And you have several federal agencies that need to go through their entire process. And so I can't speak to the timeline or the specifics of when remains will be returned, but that's part of the later process that each of those families will go through.
Thank you all.
Thank you.